Right, for a while now you've seen this shot in my videos, the talking headshot thing that many YouTubers utilize. However, I've been building out a setup that utilizes a different approach, the rolling desk setup. My goal with it was to craft a unique style for each video, as that's where I find a lot of the joy in creating these videos. But recently I've kind of been running out of angles, and you've probably noticed those grey panels in the background sometimes. These are actually acoustic panels stacked on top of each other to create a form of fake wall. It's been working out quite nicely, so I wanted to create some more fake walls, but this time in a different style while maintaining the sound absorbing properties. My hope is that I'll have some more freedom in regards to what kind of shots I'm able to capture for this YouTube channel. Now recently I've been living in this apartment, which means I no longer have easy access to my grandparents' or parents' tools, and this was then also kind of an excuse to buy some new ones and get my collection topped up. Got ourselves the Bosch PCM 8SD. Sure, my neighbors are going to be real chuffed with this. I took every precaution to dampen the sound by placing the circular saw on some insulation material. Hopefully the vibrations don't feed into the other apartments. But this machine is really nice. It's got a depth stop, which will be incredibly useful for future projects. I've always wanted to bend some plywood into unique shapes. I'll be sure to get myself a workshop before I do that. I'm pretty sure I'd get evicted if I pull that kind of stuff here. But for this little project it'll be fine. Now, I actually got the second panel for half the price, as it had water damage, which was surprisingly easy to fix with some sandpaper, and I'm quite happy that I ran into these panels because it kept the cost somewhat lower. So if you ever run into some of these panels and they have some form of damage, I definitely recommend getting them, because most of the time the store just doesn't want to deal with it and it's really easy to fix yourself. Now initially I wanted to make some dovetail joints, but I decided to keep it simple and try to make this thing with as little noise as possible. That's also why I stacked the slats over here, which has the added benefit of ensuring that everything is the same length. I made sure to cut the boards on each side as well, as you should never really trust a factory edge. The idea here is that the frame basically conforms to the size of the panels, which in this case is 244 centimeters by 60 centimeters. This makes the build process quite easy, cutting everything to size and later then putting it all together. The fact that the circular saw also cuts in a straight line is a big benefit here. Never really had anything this fancy before, and it overall made the end result a lot more clean. For some stability I also bought some smaller slats, and these will go on the inside of the frame. So these are cut to the same size as the top and bottom pieces. None of that made sense. This is what I was going for. Now normally I'd create a 3D model for something like this so that I know what I'm doing, but in this case it's just a box and anybody can really wing this into existence. I don't really recommend wasting time drawing stuff out. The thing that perhaps is important to draw out is how you're going to be mounting the fabric, because that's an underestimation I made on this build, which we'll see later on. Alright, so these are the previous acoustic panels I built, which I stacked on top of each other, so usually they're like this big. And I found that that works surprisingly well as a vocal booth. Now, normally you'd also insulate the sides to really deaden the sound, because now it's only taking care of those reflections essentially. But you can hear it when we when we talk over here, you'll feel some unease. And then when we go into this vocal booth kind of thing, it completely deadens the sound. Well, not at the moment, but it should completely deaden the sound and make the video feel a little more comfortable, so to say. But it's also really nice in an environment where you get a lot of echo, because it results in a really uncalm space. And that's what these slatted walls will also do. Now this stuff actually absorbs sound, but the slatted walls scatters it. And when you scatter sound, it also dissipates the energy. So, yeah. In my previous acoustic panel builds I did use rock wool, but this time we'll be going for something that's far safer and a lot more eco-friendly, and that's Matissa. It's made from recycled trousers. The only downside that I can see is that it smells like wet dog, which isn't great, and I did leave it outside for quite a long time to try and get rid of that. It didn't really work though, but with any luck we won't be able to notice that anymore once we get the fabric on front of there. I'd still say it's better than rock wool though, as that really annoys your skin and would totally ruin your day if you get it in your eyes. I did say I went into this project to top up on my tool collection, but my Dutch nature always creeps in and thinks of ways to save money, so I actually wanted to glue everything together, as that's a lot stronger. But it would mean that we'd have to buy some of these massive glue clamps, which I have wanted for a very long time, This time though, the Dutch side of me won, and I used these L brackets instead. I made sure to leave about 1mm of space between each L bracket so the screws pull the slats together when they get connected. Now the Bosch drill that I'm using right here is really quite nice, by the way. It starts driving in the screw as soon as you push down on it, and I actually bought this one for my dad's birthday, but somehow a lot of stuff that I buy for my dad just kind of ends up back at my place. Anyway, it really does speed up the process and I quite enjoy this thing. Now if there is anything I can make anybody take away from this project, it's that investing in tools and your ability to use them is a very worthwhile endeavour. I'm by no means an actual woodworker, but I love building my own desks and stuff like this for the simple reason that it improves my mental health. So doing DIY gigs like this almost equates to meditation, and I gave myself the choice. Either I'll invest my money in new monitors for the setup or the YouTube set and this new miter saw. The decision was quite simple. The monitors would equate to more time spent watching YouTube videos and generally just wasting away behind my computer, while this way would net me a new output which hopefully would benefit the channel and me later down the line. Right, so if you're still here this far along in the video, it usually means one of two things. Either you really enjoy my voice to fall asleep to, which is totally fine. I do that as well with a lot of content creators. Or you actually like the chill and overall just calm vibe in my videos. In that case, I'd really like to ask you to consider subscribing, liking the video, leaving a comment down below. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers, which really does mean quite a lot to me. It's been a fun journey, and yeah, any help in that regard would be appreciated. For a little while now, I've also been considering building another 60x120 setup with the same sit-stand legs as the other two, but this time a workbench style. And this project really sold me on that idea, as having the sit-stand function is really quite nice. In this case I was able to lean the longer slats off my other desk and lower it down so it would be perpendicular, making it far easier to screw everything together. Normally you'd do something like this on the floor, but I quite enjoyed this method. So if you'd like to see how I build these 60x120 desk setups with their inbuilt cable management solutions and 3D printed components, definitely let me know in the comments. When it came time to do the glue up, I used a tree-friendly hammock strap from Grand Trunk to attach everything together, which again trumped my dreams of ever owning the meter-long glue clamp. So if anybody can let me know of a build where I just won't be able to get by with the cheapskate method of gluing stuff together, I'd much appreciate it. So we'll flip this thing over to test fit the panel and see if there's any concerning irregularities that we need to fix, but it was all good. I did the math on where I should place the slats, so if anybody asks why I placed the slats in this way instead of more evenly distributed over the frame, that's because, well, I did the math wrong. But it doesn't really matter, you're not going to see these slats anyway, so I placed them 40 centimeters inwards from each side, and this is then what we'll be mounting the main panel to later down the line. So just a fun little side story here, in my class some of us actually somewhat feel like we'll be going on retirement when we graduate, and I've had this feeling for a little while now as well. This project and all the other projects that I've been doing lately, like the desk setup builds, the YouTube studio upgrades, have been somewhat in preparation of my retirement. I just want to make sure that whatever happens, I'll still be capable of making videos at the quality I like. Now, what I really appreciate is that there's companies out there that actually reach out to me to sponsor the channel. I often have to say no because it's not a good fit, but this video isn't sponsored, by the way, but it's something I do feel is important to mention. Unlike a lot of other channels, I do really appreciate it when companies reach out, because sometimes you won't be able to get access to a product that you know will benefit your audience and you know you'll be able to showcase. So what I find interesting though is that you don't need thousands upon thousands of subscribers to get sponsored, and that really blew me away. I recently started this AI automated lens review channel, which got its first sponsored product at 235 subscribers. So if you are considering starting out with making videos, I definitely recommend it. It's a very fun thing to do, especially when you get a community going. You'll see some regulars drop by in the comment section, which is always really nice to see, but it's also capable of generating a return on investment. Now luckily this project required very little sanding, just a small concave to minimize the risk of it splintering over time is enough. This is where things somewhat went down the shitter, so to say. It's the second time I've built acoustic panels and did not consider how I'd mount the fabric. The first time I fixed it with some right angle strips, which worked out fine. but for this one I thought I could just staple it on the inside of the frame and that would look fine, which was just a poor decision. I have no idea why I thought that would work, but generally it turned out horrible. Now from a distance you might not be able to tell, and this is the rear of the panel, so I won't be using them in the shot as much. In the end I got some of these ratchet straps and stapled them to the inside as well to keep the fabric from dipping inwards, which worked out a little better, but I will one day have to come back to this to fix it, as it's going to be nagging at me forever. We also have to cut a slight edge off the acoustic material so it doesn't bulge over on the other side. They fit perfectly but still smell like wet dog, which isn't great, so maybe the rock wool would have been a better decision after all. If you're building acoustic panels yourself, it's important that the fabric allows air to pass through, otherwise the insulation won't be able to absorb the sound nearly as well. Opting for curtains can be a cheap way to do this, as people often disregard their old ones when they move into a new place. Another suggestion for me would be these recycled moving blankets. I actually use them on the other panels as well, and they do look quite nice. In my area they only cost around €4, so I'll try to leave a link in the description to something similar. Once everything is in place, we'll just screw on the wall slats with some black screws. The felt pad is really quite strong and acts more like wood, but it's very soft at the same time. All of this is to say that you don't necessarily need to pre-drill holes for this, as the screws just pass through quite nicely. And here we have our first fake wall. It somewhat resembles an obelisk when it's just standing there in the middle of the room, and there is definitely some danger of this thing tipping over, so if you have pets, I'd recommend putting some kind of support structure at the back. I personally plan to 3D print some spigot mounts and connect them to the top, so it will be held in place with a light stand, but for now I'll leave them like this to see what the best mounting method will be. So the construction of the second panel went just as poorly as the first. I'll leave that up to your imagination, but in the end we're left with two obelisks. They look quite decent in my opinion. Give this shot a nice warmth with the plant in the background there as well. I got that one yesterday. And yeah, I hope this video gave you some inspiration for your own space. This also works for non-studio environments. I mean, it's just like a room divider. And if you liked it, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one.